into education matters. We're being joined in the studio at this moment by Mr. Tama Monday Yari, the Executive Director, African Center for Youth Development, Education and Advocacy Initiative. A very good morning to you, Mr. Yari. It's wonderful to have you in the studio with us.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here once again.
Fantastic. Now, you are a very strong advocate for education, especially in Nigeria, and you know, we all know the situation of our educational sector, and as much as we have very brilliant minds, brilliant students in all levels of academia across the country, the sector still suffers some sort of shortfalls and shortages. In your position, how would you assess the educational sector in the country at the moment?
Okay, thank you very much. This is a very important topic and it's very dear to me because you can only define how far the country will go, you know, based on the attention it pays to the quality of the education is given to its citizen. At the moment, I can say that if I'm to rate the education standard for Nigeria, I will give it, let's say, 40 over 100. Yeah. You know, that's fair. Low. That's quite low. The reason behind it is because we are far behind, you know, in a lot. You know, if you travel down to some areas in the villages, people are still sitting under the tree, you know, in this 21st century, and it shouldn't be. You know, so much need to be done. Attention need to be paid to quality education, most especially from the grassroots. You know, because that is where brain is being formed, and if they don't have the kind of education that should prepare them for the future work, that means we'll keep producing junks that will not give us the best. Knowing very well that Nigeria has the best brain, and that's why you see when Nigerians leave the shore of Nigeria, they became the best wherever they are.
Well, you mentioned paying attention to education at the grassroots, at the formative stage of a child's development. We saw a recent move by the Ministry of Education, you know, scrapping off, which came as a shocker though for many people, scrapping off the GSS and SSS system, and also the 6334 system, and adopting the 12-4 system at the moment. This might have come as a drastic change. However, in terms of the quality of education, is this going to have any significant impact?
Okay, yes, it will.
In what way?
Okay, because this is what it is. Okay. They are not actually scrubbing GSS and SSS. Mm-hmm. You know what they actually, because my organization, we are part of stakeholders with the Ministry of Education. Okay. What they're actually doing right now is to make the primary and secondary school compulsory. This is what it is. They will take away what's it called? There's this exam that they usually write in GSS 3. Junior WAEC. You know, because
in GSS 3.
In GSS 3, there is no significance of, because after writing the exam, you have nothing to show off. So what they are doing is they are not actually collapsing. It will still be there in a just be into the next one. Yes. You don't need to write the exam in GSS 3 in order for you to get to SS1. Yeah. You know, and it will be compulsory now from primary, which is 6, junior, which is 3, and the senior. So now it will be compulsory from primary down to SS3. Yeah. And that is why it's called 12. So they are scrapping, are you done with your primary school? Okay. Are you done with your GSS? Are you done with... So now it will be primary, straight down to SS3. There's nothing like junior WAEC again. So that's what they're trying to do. Much
like the system that we see, perhaps the American system of education, where you know people move in grades and not necessarily in classes. That's where you have JSS1, JSS2, or SS1 and SS2. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. But now it has a side effect that government need to, most especially when it has to do with funding, because the Minister of Education has spotlighted that. Okay. You know, if you're asking people to come and study for free from primary to down to the secondary school, that's been a lot of investment need to be made in the area of education. That's mean it has to be accessible by all, whether you're in town or you're in any area. They have to just make that possible. So if they didn't pay attention to the funding of those schools, then this may be an issue. You know, people can jump from primary to SS2, without, and you see the kind of product some schools are producing now, where a child will be in primary 6 before he's writing white, before just for him to not go through the rudiment that they need to go through.
Well, that's another issue that has always been on the front burner of how our educational system is structured in the country, especially at the primary and secondary levels, where you have a child going through primary school, and then when they get to primary 4 or primary 5, their parents decide that there is no need for them to get to primary 6. And I wonder why. They take the common entrance examinations, jump into the secondary school. Once they get to JSS2, somehow some things are done and they move into the SS class and all of that. A lot of people, a majority of individuals have taken, in fact, more people have taken examinations, the WIAC or NATO examinations in SS2, even more than in SS3. Is this new system also going to address that, and in what way?
Okay, actually the system will not. Those are some of the side effects that if we didn't pay attention to, because the system, the new system that they are trying to, is still under proposed stage, which can the National Assembly can say no, and it will not pass. So the system didn't actually capture it, and that's my fear, because people can just jump from primary 4 to SS2, and because the system didn't stop. Initially you have to go through the junior class, then they will ask you, okay, you are now done with your junior class. But now from JSS1 to SS3 it's like a free flow. So people can now decide to jump from primary from JSS2 to SS3.
How about records keeping? At the end of the day, when they get to that grade 12 or SS3 as we know it, won't there be need for assessment of their grades from 1 all through to 12?
Yeah, those are some of the challenges that our educational sector is facing.
Because we don't have modalities.
We don't have modalities to assess. Yes. Those are some of the problems. In the Western world, you present, this is my grade 12 result. You have to present grade 12 result before you have access to whether grade 13 or whatever. But here, as long as they can give you an assessment and you pass, they don't ask you where you're coming from. You can just leave primary school and go to SS3 and write the exam. They are not asking you where is your SS2 result. As long as you can pass the exam, you're good to go. So those are some of the things that I'm sure the Ministry of Education will pay attention to it, and they have to just introduce a modality to check, to be sure that you have gone through the stages that one need to. And I think it will be a booster in the kind of product our school will be delivering these days.
How about schools, especially secondary schools, that parents mount pressure on them to ensure that their students or words that have been enrolled in the schools come out exceptionally well with flying colors in examinations like WIAC and NACO, even though they might not be as brilliant as their parents assume them to be? We recently saw JAM accusing some certain schools of aiding examination malpractice. Has this become the norm in our education system across the country?
Yes, because the education system is basically driven by profit-making organization. So you should expect that people pay for what you get. Imagine if you are paying huge amount of money to send your child to my school, and at the end of the day he didn't make it. You will not. It will affect the enrollment for the next time. So what school do now is to go through whatever means they can to ensure student pass. Including fraud. That is what it is. So a lot need to be done, and that is why education is beyond certificate.
Yeah.
You go to university, so you see some smart people, but they don't have the understanding of life and the application of what they learned in school into real life sector. So it becomes a problem. But when one undergoes, those check and balances, you have the understanding of the gross activities of the society. So those are some of the issues also that the Ministry of Education, those that are started with the responsibility to check and balance the quality of schools, both private and public, should intensify their work. And I'm sure, with the kind of advocacy civil society organizations and media houses are mounting on the government, I'm sure they will begin to pay attention to those check and balances. We need to have assessment reports of private schools on either yearly. Yeah. Let's know. As it is now, we don't have assessment or any report that you can lay your hand on what is happening in private schools. Nigerian government don't have it.
Even the public schools are,
Even the public,
skeptical in terms of reportage of what really goes on there.
definitely.
But in the past, in the most recent past, we all know that public schools used to be quite prestigious. You know, if you're attending a public school, the level of education or the quality of education you get there is quite exceptional. Then we started seeing a decline in that quality in public schools, which necessitated the surgence of private schools across the country. Now that's this revolution in the education sector, where parents would rather take their children to private schools than the public schools to ensure that they get quality education. Now the public schools have been relegated to the background. However, there is yet another problem. There are too many that do not meet the standard of education needed for the formative years of an individual or a student. How do we address this endemic in the
an endemic issue? Because the number of private schools springing up, very alarming. Some are not even, the environment are nothing to talk about. So what is there is, I was having a conversation with someone and I said, if I'm given the power to rebalance the way our educational system is being managed, what I'll do is I will ensure, if it's just like in the medical sector, if you're a doctor working in a public space, you are not allowed to own a private hospital or something. That is how it should be. Most of all these schools,
but you can work in a private,
but you can, but don't own it. Most of the private schools you are seeing all around are owned by people who have one or two things to do with the public space education. So the kind of energy they're supposed to put in the public space, they don't use it to fund their own system. So what needs to be done is that policy need to be in place. And also the accreditation standard has to be improved and outlined. They have to make it very stringent. Countries like China, who before you own a school, you must prove. That's why you see a lot of private schools are not really there. The government, the public space are still, because they make sure before a private person can get accredited to run a private school, you have everything that public school don't have.
Now, Mr. Yari, don't get me entirely wrong. I'm not saying that the private schools are entirely of low or substandard quality. I'm saying that at some point, it became as if somebody could decide to wake up, rent a shop or two shops, break the wall, set up stools and all of that, and call it a school, for a primary school, for people to come and drop their children to learn. Now, you see this all around the country. In fact, let me be specific. This is most rampant in the southeastern part of the country, where every nook and cranny of every single neighborhood has a school named with ridiculous nomenclatures. This is the endemic I'm talking about.
Yes, just as I said, policies need to be strengthened, and also enforcing those policies are important. What happens if you are found running an illegal or substandard school? That person should be prosecuted, because you are tampering with the future of not just those students, but the country.
That's correct.
So, but the worst part of it is the implementation has always become a problem in this part of the country, because the people that own such school have someone or somewhere within the system that is interested in that particular school
and keeps them running.
So implementation become problem. But if we have a very strict, just as in a corruption sector where we have EFCC and the rest of it, we need to have an education police that go about checking this school over, and that is why private schools reporting is important. We need to know which particular school is doing this, which one is not doing this. From there, we'll be able to ask questions. But we don't really have, and those schools may have all the papers that we need, but those papers are just there. In reality, they are not what we think they are. So if we have such a report, we'll be able to checkmate and follow up. It's a whole lot, but it's something that is doable if the political will is there.
Well, it's a whole lot. It's doable. Political will. Talking about political will, we saw JAMB again. Apart from accusing these schools of aiding and abetting the fraud that goes on in the schools or like examination malpractice. We saw them pegging the JAM cutoff mark for students under the age of 16 or 16 and below, right?
Yep.
To about 320 to gain access into the university. I believe that many persons have cried out that this is perhaps to dissuade those parents who are keen on sending their children or words to the university at very tender ages. Is this true? And is JAM right in this move?
Okay, I can't ascertain how true that is.
Okay.
But JAM is saddled with the responsibility to assess the level of understanding, word understanding, before crossing over to university.
Yeah.
Because in the university, you have a lot of leeway, you have freedom that you can do. So if they set such standards, then they are doing that based on their pre-belief about the quality of secondary schools that we have in the country. But 300 is a whole lot.
320
is a whole lot.
It's a whole lot. That's why many people have argued that JAM is doing it to dissuade them.
It's a whole lot.
You remember the whole argument about the age limit of students applying for universities in the country. It became a very huge problem in the country at some point, until JAM conceded, or until the Ministry of Education sort of conceded to the pressure mounted by certain stakeholders, in the country. And now it's almost as if they are playing a game of chess. Okay, we have decided 16-year-olds can go to the university, but let them meet 320 as the cutoff mark.
And that's one of the reasons why you see private schools, quack private schools are springing up here and there. As long as they get accreditation. There are universities in Nigeria where no matter your cutoff mark, even if it is 100, they can still give you admission as long as you can afford it. So how about parents that don't have money to send their children to such private schools? So I think review should be made, and we are not saying that they should not set standard, but they should not use those standards to send more people out of school, because the number of out of school children is alarming. So you set high standard, you are sending a lot out of school, and there's no provision for copying those people that couldn't get access to the four walls of university. So a lot need to be done, but I'm sure JAM are listening and they will look into it. But 300 is too much. I'm not sure if it's true.
Let's hope they look into it, Mr. Yari. Recently, the Minister of Power, Chief Adelebu, had visited the University College Hospital in Ibadan to discuss with its management over a blackout that has lingered for more than 100 days in the school. And also during the visit there was a protest. This morning we're hearing that the federal government is allocating about 100 billion naira towards solar mini grids installation at the UCH, UNN, the Ahmadu Bello University, and many other universities across the country to tackle this issue of lack of electricity supply in the country. What do you make of this development? Is this exciting news for us? And also, how sustainable are these mini solar power grids?
Okay, how sustainable it is, that's a question that the government can answer, because I'm not part of those people. But providing a solar grid is important, because that's what University of Abuja is currently running. I was at the University of Abuja some days back, and I can tell you it's something that's worth it if we can, because we need to move to green energy. We don't need to start, because it was a big issue with the PSCN. Their private ventures now are more into that PSCN, and you don't expect them to be giving you free power while they use their own capital to fund you. So providing a solar grid is important. But what is there is the issue of sustainability. How can we manage it? Building from Abuja experience, which is still running, but all these things have time. Next 20 years, they will know what actually happened to it. But I'm sure if they put up a system in place where they will check and balance how those solar grid is being used, I'm sure it will be sustained. But if we don't have, if we're given the kind of the Nigerian government gave to railway, then it will be difficult for the thing to exist for the next 10 years.
Remember that the federal government had promised a 50% subsidy on electricity tariffs across Nigerian universities. That didn't happen, and then we are now seeing them offering 100 billion naira, solar mini grid installation across certain universities. Many would argue that perhaps the government is trying to cut corners by not paying that 50% off on electricity tariffs for Nigerian universities. That maybe just giving out the 100 billion naira is cheaper. Is this correct?
Both parties are trying to play safe. 50% on the electricity tariff on universities is a win for the university.
And would likely run above 100 billion.
Yes, it's a win for the university. But also the issue of sustainability also is important. I know the power sector is being privatized. Yeah. We have a lot of hands now into power. So the government will not want to put those investors at risk. So I am in support of allowing universities to run their powering system. Mm-hmm. They will know how to manage it. I was at the University of Abuja, as I said, and I asked a business center guy, how are you doing with the electricity? He said, yes, here is cheaper because the university is using a solar grid and they are paying. And because it is the school that are managing it, they make sure no one use illegal way to get power. They checkmate every day.
What we all know as bypass.
They make sure that if you are using anything, you are paying for it. And that also is a plus.
If you're tapping into what they're generating,
yes,
you're paying for it, and thereby also generating more revenue
for the school. Yes.
Should other universities adopt this?
Definitely.
And why do you think such universities, even universities that are considered, federal colleges of education or federal universities of technology, have not adopted this system yet? They still grapple with the issue of having to tap from the national grid, and some of them don't even pay electricity tariffs to these discos.
The issue of best brains are also important in running all these things. Okay. Because if we have best brains at the right place, they will know what to do. Definitely solar is more economical, it's more manageable, it's something that the institutions can manage. So I am of a strong opinion that all universities, both public, should emulate solar systems. It's easy, it can be managed at all times. So what is there is the issue of best brains. But I'm sure because if they manage, they will carry the headache. And to be sure that those services are being paid for, they are sustainable, and they are also manageable. So that will also reduce the burden on the federal government. And they will carry on the burden of making sure that whatever they use, they are generated. Just that government need to provide the facilities that they need.
All right, Mr. Yari, something very historic happened recently in Kaduna State that I would want you to react to. A huge strike. Let's see if we can pick up the Vanguard newspaper and take a look at a picture of prominence on the Vanguard as earlier read out this morning. In just a moment, the Vanguard newspaper is reaching your screen right now. You'd find here a picture of Dr. Tunji Alausa, Minister of Education, alongside Ola Olukoyede, Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, signing some documents, while Vice President Kashim Shettima and Governor Obasani of Kaduna State, as well as other officials, watched during the formal handover of the newly established Federal University of Applied Sciences in Kachia, Kaduna State, to the federal government. This was yesterday.
Thank you.
Is this the appropriate time to give a round of applause to the federal government?
Oh, yes. And the most important thing is that particular university is in my area.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much. I did a handshake on that.
Please, roll on.
We were just having a conversation in Southern Kaduna stakeholders WhatsApp group this morning, and the news pop up. This is what it is. It's something we have been anticipating since. That area, we need something like that. So to me, it's a commendable effort to the federal government. It's something that we have been yearning for, we have been praying for, we have been agitating for, and now it is delivered. It is now left for us in Nigeria as a whole, because as one entity, to make sure that this University of Applied Science come to fruition, not just, but becomes the most sought after University of Applied Science in Nigeria. So I think it's a welcome development, and I'm happy with the present government, the present governor of Kaduna State, and also the Minister of Education.
In terms of helping or aiding education, especially in Kaduna State, of course, it's a federal university. Many individuals from different parts of the country will troop in droves to the university. But in terms of growing the educational sector in Kaduna State, how much of an impact will this have for your people? We have seen what the Ahmadu Bello University of Zaria has done. Its historic impact. With this inception, or with the inception of this university, what should we be expecting?
Okay, what we should be expecting is, I'm sure definitely because it's called University of Applied Science.
Yes.
There's been a lot of research will be done. That university will present another challenge or another area to scholars to venture into research that should be used to solve future generations. Just like when you make mention of university that is good when it has to do with medicine, people think of UI. Exactly. People think of, oh, I need to go to UI. When you talk of, oh, let me study something that has to do with political science, some people have a particular university that has been designated.
That they think of.
That they think of. So this also will open our eyes to the need for our scholars to venture into a lot of research that has to do with applied science. So I think it will actually be a plus. Not having it is a minus, but having it is a plus in one way or the other, economically, socially, and also in the area of research. So it and also developmental wise, it will actually, that university will take people off the street, in terms of job employment, and also some people who don't want to go to school will now have a rethink of, I think I need to, and also because the future is in science. So the university will actually end that.
Mr. Yari, are you considering moving to the university also as a lecturer or any sort of staff anytime soon?
I would think towards that. Although I just finished my master's in international affairs and diplomacy, but I'll think about it.
Well, I mean, it would be fantastic for you to go there, considering that it is in your hometown. And of course, you will also be contributing your quota to your people and to the general educational sector across the country.
Let's see what the future holds, but it will be a great deal to be a part of that movement.
Well, we wish you the best of luck going forward. It's been a pleasure having you here with us, Mr. Monday Yari, Tama Monday Yari. It's been wonderful having you, the ED African Center for Youth Development, Education and Advocacy. But before we let you out of the studio in just a moment, let's see if we can join Mrs. Shakirat Animasahun Oriyomi, who is the founder, Flying Dove Institute of Information and Technology. Hello and a very good morning to you, Mrs. Animasahun. It's wonderful to have you join us virtually on Morning Express. Hello, Mrs. Animasahun. Well, it appears that we're having a little bit of difficulty with that connection. But coming back to you, I'm afraid we won't be letting you go now because you just cited something interesting, and my producer has asked me to keep you for a little longer.
Thank you.
Talking about technology and the future of education, especially the educational system or sector in the country. With the inception of this particular university, and of course we all know how AI, artificial intelligence and all of that is gradually creeping into virtually every sector of our lives in the world. What do you think the Nigeria's educational sector has in terms of AI and the future?
Okay, Nigeria is still a work in progress compared to other countries when it has to do with artificial intelligence integration to the future of education. In the area of usage, we are still a little bit behind. In the area of producing it, we are still a little bit behind. So at the moment, there is a lot of work, on the ground. That's why the federal government introduced new curriculums to secondary school to cope that issue. But I'm sure Nigerians, we are good. When we put our mind to do something, we can actually get it done. So investment need to be done also in order for us to make sure we meet up to the global west, who are actually ahead of us when it has to do with artificial intelligence. But the good part of it is most of brains behind those innovations are mostly Nigerians and Africans. So if only we can harness and invest more in the area of artificial intelligence, the area of big data, in the area of research, we'll definitely get the best out of the artificial intelligence world.
All right, fantastic. I hear that we have Mrs. Shakirat Animasahun Oriyomi on the line with us. Hello and a very good morning to you, ma'am. It's wonderful to have you join us on Morning Express.
Good morning.
All right,
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. You are the founder, Flying Dove Institute of Information Technology, and I was just speaking to Mr. Yari here in the studio concerning our educational sector and also the future of AI with regards to learning, narrowing it down to Nigeria. Do you care to let us in on the activities that you do at the Flying Dove Institute of Information Technology before we delve into these matters?
Well, at FIT, that's Flying Dove Institute of Information Technology, basically what we do is to ensure a blend of knowledge, skills, and attitude, such that our products don't just come out with the certificates, they equally have the skills required in the workplace. And interestingly, AI is one very big thing happening to us in all aspects of life beyond education. But bringing it down to education, at start, it appeared like an out of reach resource meant for a few, where only few could have access to it. But the good news is they are open source now. In the news in the past couple of days, you would see the deep sea coming up, creating open source resource where almost everyone and anyone can actually be a part of it and enjoy the benefit that comes with it. And I'm happy, just like the first person mentioned, Nigerians are quite resilient and can make whatever they desire happen. So for that reason, I'm quite optimistic that with the knowledge available, with the tools available, Nigerians are not just going to do well in the space of AI, but we're going to actually excel and then be able to show the whole world what we're capable of putting to the table. So the education is provided in our school and so many other institutions around, and Nigerians are quite excited about it. I was speaking with a colleague who is based in Luxembourg recently, and she was telling me our developers are Nigerians, based in Nigeria. So talking about being able to pay them, being able to make transactions happen, there are lots of APIs that Nigerians have access to already. That's already making a huge difference. In the nearest future, I see an economy that is booming, that is thriving. Nigerian economy with the kind of access that we have.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, our efforts to push other sectors of economy is now made better with the kind of access that is being created such platforms. So it's a good news for Nigeria that creates huge opportunities for Nigerians.
All right.
That will definitely increase our GDP in no distant time.
Well, how would you react to this very fantastic news of a recent establishment of the Federal University of Applied Sciences in Kachia, Kaduna State, which coincidentally is where Mr. Yari is from as well. He has been quite excited, chatting away about what the university means for people of that region and also the addition to our educational sector. What are your thoughts?
Well, for every new institution that we have in Nigeria, focused at making impact is an advantage. You agree with me that access to education in Nigeria is still low, whether at the basic education level or the secondary or even the tertiary. So every institution established is an addition to the impact that we can make at that stage.
Yeah.
So I strongly feel that it's an opportunity for people in that location, in that region, and even the entire Nigeria. So anyone from any part of Nigeria can have access, I mean, to whatever courses obtainable in the institution. So really, we need more. If you look at the statistics of how many students apply to JAMB annually, it will shock you to realize that of almost 2 million apply, and less than 30% of them, if I'm being modest, are able to secure space in one institution or the other. And then you have people being recycled annually, rewrite this year and then they rewrite again and again. And then you have many who are trying to even dodge the JAMB exams because probably the secondary education was not good enough for them to even secure the kind of scores required for them to secure a space in the institutions. So it means that as we have more institutions, more Nigerian youth have access to tertiary education that they really need, that
Now,
they're looking for.
now, Mrs. Animasahun, you own the Flying Dove Institute of Information Technology, which is a private institution but has been successful in terms of equipping individuals seeking for knowledge with regards to IT, and yet it appears that we have very little importance or attention given to such field in our public institutions across the country, where it's just the regular theoretical form of learning and all of that. Do you think that the government perhaps should innovate and come up with more institutes that have to do with just IT, or specialized institutes like Mr. Yari was citing, that there are certain universities that if you think of medicine, you think of this university. If you think of law, you think of this university. Do you think that sort of approach would help narrow down or streamline these issues of people having to take JAMB time and time again and not gain access into conventional universities?
Okay, well, things evolve, and as a nation, we're evolving.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you that the government alone cannot do this. It requires private institutions or private individuals, organizations equally contribute to their quota. However, I do agree with you that um, institutions, like I mentioned earlier, having more and more of it is what we need at the moment, whether specialized or conventional.
Yeah.
Really. So to have specialized institutions, that helps. To have conventional equally helps. But what I think really matters more is the content of what we do out, what we give to our youth. Situation where you still teach on platforms that no longer serve, that needs to be updated, especially when it comes to IT. It's quite a fast-paced environment when new things come out almost hourly. So it's important that Nigerian education is connected to what happens, globally. Where, for instance, you don't have a graduate of computer science that do not know where to plug in a flash on a laptop. That can be very ridiculous.
Yes.
And that's what you find in a lot of places at the moment. So it means that whether it's a specialized institution or it's a conventional institution, it's important that they get the knowledge, call it the theory, and equally get the skills. Like at Flying Dove, if you are studying computer system and networking, we blend in CCNA, that's a Cisco certification program,
Yeah.
such that in the course of your program or after your program, you can write the certification to certify that, okay, now you are an associate, a networking associate, so such that your certificate is globally recognized. So you have the knowledge, you have the skills, and then you have the certificate. Eventually, whether you want to start a business on your own or you want to work for an organization, you become very attractive, and the likelihood of being successful is higher. But situation where you have just the certificate and not so much to show for it, it's a problem. Let
Okay.
me quickly say this.
All right.
You have millions of people seeking jobs in Nigeria today, not only in Nigeria, globally. And you equally have millions of spaces there people are looking to fill up. That's an irony, isn't it? So it's important that there is a bridge between the institutions and the industry. That's what we call turn and gown, such that eventually there is a balance. And that's what I think is more important than the number of institutions we have, or whether the institutions are specialized or conventional.
A brilliant point you have laid out there. It's more about bridging the gap between the educational system and the industry itself. And coming back to you, Mr. Yari, in the studio, that also takes us back to the federal government's recent decision to launch out 100 billion naira mini solar power grids across certain universities in the country, including the UCH, UNN, and ABU Zaria. The argument on the table has been about why these universities have not been able to, churn out their own students who have studied something relating to that to, develop these mini power grids for the universities to sustain themselves. Why does the federal government have to even source externally for experts to do this when the universities are already teaching students to be able to, practicalize this?
Okay, just like what the flight of ED said, is an issue of what you are, producing out. The truth about it is so much involved. Just as we said earlier on, most of all these products we are sourcing outside, the brains behind them are Nigeria. The brains behind most, you'll be shocked at those power grids were installed by Nigerians, just that the figurehead was probably someone from maybe Germany or India or one of those countries. But the guys that do the technical work, the guys that do the technical workings are Nigerians. Just that the political space is very close. It's open to people outside Nigeria, but many are times close. And that is why even these power grids are to the best of the university. But the sustainability issue also comes in.
So sustainability by the university.
By the university. Would they allow the best brains to manage it? Or the issue of my uncle or my brother asked me to be in this position, to be in this place because of what comes in, now creep in. So it is not the issue of probably we don't have people that can do it. It's the issue of the political game that involves it.
So is that what is stopping that bridging of the gap between the academia and the industry?
Yes, and that is what is actually affected.
They learn all that they can in the university, but to actually practicalize it becomes a problem. It's quite simple. You find that certain individuals who might have not even gone to the university or have not seen the four walls of a classroom might be more knowledgeable when it comes to solar technology than even university students who are studying courses related to that field.
Okay, it's a whole lot of issues, and we have students also who we are tagged as people that cannot do it, or when they get out there do it. For example, I had a friend who studied at the University of Agriculture. I think it's either Akure or somewhere. He was given a scholarship by Google to school outside Nigeria. That guy became the best in the university in the area of IT. He became the best, but in Nigeria he was struggling. He just have to go and find his way around. Such opportunity.
Why do you think that was happening? Why was he struggling?
The environment. You understand
Hostility.
me? The environment. And that is what Madam said. We just need to build up a system that will bring together the gang and the tank. Whatsoever the school is giving out should be something that is relatable within the working space. It's something that the labor market can't absorb. Are you with me? Yeah. But now we have a systems where some knows, some don't really know because of the issue of some people just want their children to finish because they have someone somewhere that will get them job. Just finish.
Which was what we had earlier cited.
Discussed.
Parents mounting pressure on their children.
Just finish and come. I have somewhere, you'll be there. Don't worry, we'll hire a consultant. We are having an issue of consultants in Nigeria currently.
Everybody's a
where
consultant.
in a central bank, what someone need to do, they now hire a consultant, they're paying them over 50 million for these services, the services that you're supposed to do. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that has also creeping into all the years, into all the sectors. People that are supposed to be there, that do the job, are not there because they don't know who should ascend for them to be there. You understand? Then people that shouldn't be there are there. So that's the issue.
Because they know someone who
know someone that knows someone. We have institutions who are producing the best, but the environment is too hostile for them to put that which they have learned into practice. Although, just like what Madam said, a lot of things need to be upgraded. You go to some schools, the ICT centers, they are still using system that you have to press F1 like 5 times, and before you go tired and give up. So a lot of things need to be upgraded. And
well, it appears that you have seen quite a lot in your advocacy for better education, for students across the country. But I will come back to you in just a moment. Well, if you're still with us on the line, Mrs. Animasahun, we hear comments coming in from the Minister of Education, citing that about 169,000 students, have so far benefited from the federal government's student loan program, which has seen massive success. Kudos to the federal government, I must say. But beyond just throwing money at students to aid their learning, in universities across the country, what other modalities?
I don't quite agree with you that money was thrown at students.
Okay, but beyond just loaning students money, what other modalities can be put in place to ensure that learning is very effective? Nigerians are very brilliant people, but like Mr. Yari had cited here, the hostility in Nigerian universities is what stunts Nigerians from actually practicing or practicalizing this deep wealth of knowledge that they have in their heads. Your thoughts?
Fantastic. As a mother, if I was to be speaking to Nigerian youth, using this platform, I would say that mindset is everything. And for that reason, if you keep thinking the environment is hostile, I can't get the government to do this and that for me, you probably will be stuck. But when you acquire the necessary skills and the knowledge, the world, the entire globe is your space. With the kind of resources, with the internet, you do not have to be constrained by whatever situation around you in Nigeria. That's my opinion to start with. Now, talking about the NELFund loan, I would say it's a very big one for Nigerian youth. Funding is a critical thing in whatever setting, in any project, in any institution. So if a student knows that his fees are paid, his meal secured, he's able to concentrate better. There was a time I had in the institute 3 blind students. And one of them was carrying his admission letter into our school to beg for alms. So God will have it, my husband went to pray in one mosque and then saw this young man with the admission letter. He quickly recognized that this is an admission letter from our institute. And then some people were asking questions. Could it be true? Could it not be true? And they came to the school to make inquiries. Was this student truly given admission into your school? We said yes. And then Niger State Education Ministry equally sent some representatives, and we showed them how we go to Shedder to go do Braille to ensure that this particular student graduates. Eventually he did. I'm happy, or let me say they did, 3 of them. And today they are doing better for themselves. They had to go begging. So imagine if they didn't have to go begging. If there was a loan they could access at that time, they probably would do better. And that's just an example. There are so many Nigerians, as I'm talking to you today, who are poverty driven, who cannot afford to go to school without such loans. So I do strongly believe that the loan will make a significant impact. And that it will make them get a better experience while learning. So funding is critical. Let me now tell you another advantage that probably would come in future. When they graduate, in a better situation and have better skills acquired, hopefully, they do not have to be constrained by Nigerian environment. They can serve the entire globe, like we mentioned earlier. With relevant skills, you can be in Nigeria, you don't need to go anywhere, and you can earn in whatever currency from other parts of the world. So what's critical for us as a nation is ensuring that the teaching learning process is effective across board, such that our youth are able to acquire the knowledge and the skills that is relevant to the industry at this point in time, the 21st century skills. That's all we need to do. So if you give them funding, makes it better. Provide better physical infrastructure, makes it easier.
Yeah.
Ensure our educators at all levels are comfortable, makes it better as well. So whatever thing we can put in place to ensure that teaching learning process is effective and efficient, and our students are getting the knowledge and the skills that they need for the 21st century space, please welcome.
All right, quite a fine place to leave the conversation here with you, Mrs. Shakirat Animasahun Oriyomi. But I must thank you so much for lending in your thoughts to this conversation. It's been a pleasure. Hoping to have you join us, perhaps in the studio physically next time. Well, that has been Shakirat Animasahun, the founder, Flying Dove Institute of Information Technology, discussing with us virtually from Suleja. Now, to the concluding part of this, conversation, Mr. Yari. In just a few moments, we'll let you out of the studio. You have heard what she said concerning, the student loan program. Your final thoughts before we go.
Yes, I think it's a very welcome development because I am a beneficiary of student loan. From the university I graduated, because I was good. I was one of the best students, so they allow me to graduate. Even I graduated after 3 years before I finished paying the school fees. So I think it's a very welcome development. And a lot of people truly want to go to school, but they don't know how to go about sourcing for money. So it's a welcome development. And also, just like what she rightly said, giving those students the best skills that they need. Not just about graduating, but what they need to sustain themselves afterwards, so that they'll be able to generate what they need to generate to pay the loan back. Because even in America, they have issue of government have to clear loans because some people couldn't repay back. So if proper mindset is being given to the student, then at the end of the day, it's a very welcome development. It's a very welcome development.
Well, it is a welcome development, and let's hope that more initiatives like this come up from the federal government.